Welcome back to the Donkey Vote Political Podcast for another interview. Today we're joined by the father of the House of the Victorian Legislative Assembly, Kim Wells. Just before we start, Kim, I know you were elected in 1992, and I don't want to make you feel old, but me and Tobias are both born in 2005 and 2006. So you were you
That
were
makes
pretty
me
you.
feel that makes me feel very old.
It's fine. It's fine. A lot of experience. Let's just say that.
Thank you. Thank you. Very kind.
Yeah, so for the audience out there, Kim, hopefully they would know who you are, but just for those who don't, could you give us a little brief description of yourself before we get into the questions?
Okay. So I was elected in 1992 for when the Kennett government won office. And then we went out of office in 1999. I went into the Shadow Ministry in 2002 and then was in either Shadow Police or Shadow Treasurer. And in 2010 became the Treasurer. And then when Baillieu was axed, then I obviously went with Baillieu because Ted and I were very closely aligned. And then I became the Minister for Police. So it's been an interesting political career, and it's something it's the only thing I've wanted to do since I was 14 years of age was to go into Liberal politics and to play footy. They were the two things in my entire life I wanted to do. So I'm incredibly grateful being given the opportunity by the Liberal Party to be part of this.
Yeah, as I said before, you are the technically the father of the Victorian Legislative Assembly.
Thank you for saying that. Some people say the great grandfather, but I'm very
The
pleased it's
great,
just the father.
maybe the great great grandfather.
No, 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 no. Father will do. Just kindly. Thank you.
Yeah. So you have a wealth of experience in Parliament. So I guess you're the father of the Liberal Party in the Victorian Legislative Assembly, and Bev McCarthy's the mother of the Liberal Party in the Victorian Legislative Council. So in a
Yes,
sense,
yes, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so we'll now get started with our questions. So my first question is even though it probably was a long time ago, how was your high school and university life, and do you have any memorable moments?
So I grew up in Bairnsdale, so right down the very far east of Victoria, and it is the best place in the world to grow up. It was just amazing. In the country, we had the river about a kilometre away. We had Gippsland Lakes about 5 kilometres away. We had the surf about 25 kilometres away, and we just went surfing or swimming or hiking, playing sport the whole time. So it was the best of the best places to grow up. From high school, I was fortunate. I was good at sport. So I was captain of our swim team and our athletics team, and I played good footy. But the thing I remember most was I was put up for foster care when I was 15 or 16. And at that age, it's pretty scary. And the school were incredibly good to me. So they found accommodation for me first up, and then they moved me around to different houses before ending up in a Jehovah's Witness men's boarding house. So the school was fantastic. So when I went back to receive an award 3 or 4 years ago, I thanked the school. It's a great opportunity for me to thank the school for when you're down and out and didn't have a lot of support. The school to me were just incredible.
Yeah. So would that be your memorable moment as well? Just
I think
getting
in the in the face of diversity, um, the school was my first port of call, and they could have said, "Hey, listen, kid, get lost," but they had a school chaplain there, and I worked as a school chaplain and able to find accommodation, work at Woolworths at night, and then ended up at the Jehovah's Witness um, men's boarding house. So there was an old bloke there who was 64, a couple who was 62, another guy who was 60, then it was me at 16. So there was a fair gap between the people who were living in that boarding house. But hey, it worked out well for me. It was great.
yeah, a bit like your electorate office right now with the people who are working there, a fair gap
That's
between the
right.
ages.
Yes, that's right. It must be that trend in really mixing up the ages. Yes. Yes, I've learned that
Exactly.
obviously from an early age.
Yeah. And are you able to touch a little bit on your university life as well? Any memorable moments
Um,
from there?
so I couldn't afford to go to uni full time, so I worked during the day and went to uni at night. So being a part timer, I didn't actually get into um, the university life as much as I liked because I was playing footy for Footscray reserves. So that took up a lot of my time. But I always remember the arguments I had being part of the student union. I was totally opposed to being forced to be part of the student union. And in the end, they got so fed up with me with the arguments. They said, if you don't join the student union, we're not going to give you your exam marks. So it was pretty brutal. To me, it was unfair. I just think that it's just so grossly unfair that you're forced to join a student union. Now, I think it's a bit different these days, but in those days, it's either you join or you don't get your results. It was one or the other. So not much of a memorable moment, but I fought it every single time I went to have to pay my school fees or university fees.
Yeah. I don't think student unionism is, I guess it's not as you're not forced to join it nowadays, but I think it's still a pretty big part of universities. So
Yeah. I get all
yeah.
that, but if it's on a voluntary basis that you join, perfectly fine. Just do it. Just do it. But being forced to join was what I objected to.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you there as well. Like you shouldn't be forced to join a student union at any cost. Like, we're all individuals. Like we can't be forced to do our own things, We have our different interests and that sort of thing. So yeah, like forcing people to do that sort of thing is completely wrong.
Yep, no, it stinks. And anyway, hopefully it's better now.
Yeah,
I'm
hopefully for us going into
I'm
next
pretty
year.
sure. I'm
So
pretty
yeah,
sure it is. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, so we'll
good.
now get on to our second question. Tobias.
Yes. On your parliamentary website, you talk about going against your own father's politic views, as he was a white man during the 1970s. For some of the audience, this this is a similar experience whether the parents are on the political right or left of the spectrum. Against uh Going against their parents is always a tough thing. Are you able to talk about your experience going against your father's beliefs and for following what you believe in?
Thanks, Toby. So we lived in the housing commission part of Bairnsdale, which I think they call social housing these days. So my dad failed grade six, not form six, grade six. So he didn't continue school and just went and worked on farms and things like that. So when he started arguing the case for Labor and Gough Whitlam, none of it made any sense to me. Logically, it made no sense whatsoever to me. And when Gough Whitlam came in and he was just spending, like Labor governments do, I just asked a stupid question by when they actually pay, when do they pay back, when they pay back? And the answers he gave me were just ridiculous. And what attracted me to the Liberal Party is one of their beliefs: reward for effort, reward for effort. And it goes through everything in part of my life as a 14-year-old. So I was living with my parents at that stage. But if you did one paper round, you got to pay a certain amount. If you do two, you get paid more. If you do four, you get paid more. If you were in Cubs or Scouts, the harder you worked, the more badges you got, the more skilled you became. So for me, my whole life is about reward for effort, reward for effort. And there is no other party in this country that does it as well as the Liberal parties as a sole belief. So at age 14, that's what I said before, I said to him and my mother, I'm going to go into Liberal politics at 14 and I'm going to play footy until I'm 40. And the reason, Francis, we were chatting before, is the reason I did accounting was solely to go into politics. It wasn't for any other reason, but I believe if you're going to go into politics, you've got to be educated. You've got to be well educated. And I figured that accounting was the basis that I should use. And then I went to work in the transport industry. And with the transport industry, it gave me that really tough industrial relations, like working on the wharf, working on the rail, working on the trucks, tough industries, but it makes you more prepared. So it was all of those combinations that broke away from my father to be able to go into Liberal politics. So I thank him today. He's not alive, but I thank him today for just lighting that fuse about my interest in politics. As horrified as he was, and that's not the reason I ended up in foster care, because I told him I was going to become a Liberal. Please don't think that for one moment. There are other reasons. But yeah, it all fell apart about a year or two later after that. So unfortunate, but for me, it worked out perfectly well. So it was great.
Yeah, and I think another thing I'm going to just touch on again was, talking about state debt. Victoria in general right now is in a pretty big state debt. So I guess Labor governments in general just spend, and sadly don't really have any way to repay it unless it's increasing taxes.
It is just unbelievable. They have a reputation for it. I'd love to know if there's an example where they have left the budget in a stronger position at the end of their term compared to the way they found it at the start of their term. And I'm guessing not. And you're looking now, it's great, all these infrastructure projects. We love seeing road congestion being fixed and tunnels being built, but we want to make sure that we can afford to pay it. We want to be able to make sure there's money there to be able to build these roads, because at the moment, because there's so much infrastructure going on, there's a shortage of labour, shortage of skilled engineers, shortage of the raw materials, the shortage of the transport. You go, okay, how's this all going to work? And then they're going to add the rail, suburban rail loop on top of all that. Just go, this is going to end in tears. This is going to end in tears. It's a great idea in theory, but in practice, is it actually deliverable? And I'm struggling to see how that is.
Yeah, and touching on the suburban rail loop as well. They've haven't actually, even for us in the western suburbs, because we're both from Point Cook, they've cancelled the CRL West side and the airport link. So we don't even know when that's going to be built as well. So we're basically spending our taxpayer money on something that we're probably never going to even use in our lives. So yeah,
and that
it's crazy.
That airport rail link, they went to an election promising to build it. That's what they said, and they had all their glossy brochures, something out of utopia. They got all the press conferences, the press releases, everything else that went with it, and now they can't deliver it. And they go, oh, well, we'll move on to the next project. It's just outrageous, absolutely outrageous. They can say and promise. And one of the things that we did under the Value government was, before we made an announcement, we'd make sure the business case stacked up. And now today, they just announce something and then worry about the business case later. It is absolute madness.
Yeah, it really, really is. So hopefully in the future, Liberal government can come in 2026, hopefully even 2030, and fix all this crisis up, because we do need it right now. We really do.
And so say all of us, absolutely.
Yeah. We'll now move on to our third question. I know we got pretty political there, but this is going to be talking a little bit more about your previous careers before politics. So, Kim, your previous work before politics was included working as an accountant, an operations manager, and as a transport manager. Could you tell us a little bit about these careers before you entered politics?
Okay, so the reason I went into the transport industry was to make sure I had real tough industrial relations experience. I think being a political advisor and going straight into politics sometimes doesn't quite work out. But having a hardened career, like working on the wharf, I tell you, it was brutal. I cut back on the amount of beer that the guys were going to have for their Christmas party, because the amount of beer they had the time before, it ended up in fist fights and everything else. So I cut back the beer, half the amount of beer, to give to the blokes in the warehouse, and they went out on strike and they refused to come back to work. And the run up to Christmas, until I provided more beer. So, and that was all over the papers. It was just madness. And then when you went down to the wharf at 10 o'clock in the morning to take the beer down to thank the wharfies, by 10 o'clock, there was already, some of the fights going on. And it just was a really ugly industry. But for me, I was incredibly grateful. There were a lot of very good people in it. So it was a good experience. And then I went into accounting, and it was all about getting that good business experience to be able to go into politics, to have a good understanding of accounting. So for those doing a Bachelor of Accounting, I reckon it's a great move if you want to go into politics later on.
Yeah, hopefully down the line. The dream always is, even for me as well, the dream is to become hopefully like a member of Point Cook down the line. So who knows what
How
could
good would
happen.
that be? Geez, that'd be, if we could just start winning some seats in the West. Gee, they must be so fed up with the incompetence, the traffic being taken for granted. There needs to be
Yeah.
some big changes.
Yeah. Because yesterday me and Tobias, we went in to go see our local member, Matthew Hilakari, and I was questioning him on a lot of things, including bus timetables, the suburban rail loop, as I talked about before, Point Cook Community Hospital, and a lot of the intersection works that they're doing at
Yeah.
Snides Road. I don't know if you don't know them specifically, like Snides Road, Point Cook Road, and Central Avenue. And he did give me some answers, but they weren't very definitive. Like for the Point Cook Community Hospital, I was like, when's that actually going to get built?
He just said coming
He
soon.
said,
Coming soon.
coming soon. That's all he said, coming soon. So hopefully we might go back next year, and
And
we'll see what he says.
you'll see
We'll see
what
what's
Excellent.
happened.
you'll see
Yeah,
what happens in that time first.
yeah. We'll see if those projects actually get built.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's hope they do.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll get now into our fourth question. So Tobias.
Yes, you are also an avid sportsman with interest in tennis, football, hiking, mountain engineering, I think, or that
Mountaineering.
Yeah, mountaineering.
mountaineering. Uh, having done the con con
Kokoda.
Dakota Trail in 1995, can you talk about your connections to sports, especially hiking and mountaineering?
Okay, so I guess it's that thing that drives me, that reward for effort, reward for effort, reward for effort. So I've climbed the highest mountain on 4 continents. So obviously Australia, South America, Europe, and Africa. So I've done the 4. In Alaska, I got within 8 hours of the summit up in Mount McKinley. So got within 8 hours after being on the mountain for about nearly 3 weeks, but got hit by an Arctic storm. So that would have been 5. And then obviously the other 2 is Everest, and I've been to the base camp, and the one down to the Antarctic, Vincent Massive. So mountaineering's been important for me. It's been sad because when we climbed Aconcagua in Argentina, 3 died on the way up. And I tell you, there is nothing more scary than knowing that people have died just ahead of you. So it's been sad, but it's been achieving when you can actually get to the summit. I guess it's that achieving, reward for effort, that sort of thing. Hiking, I still love hiking. Wilson's Prom, Mount Feathertop, Mount Bogong, still love going up and around there. And sport, I still play tennis today, competition. I'm still as hopeless as I was as a 12-year-old.
Do you play a bit with Sam Groth, Kim?
Pardon?
Do you play a bit with Sam Groth?
That's Sam. I sit with Sam in Parliament, and he reckons the biggest downfall of Parliament is sitting next to Kim Wells, because on Tuesday morning I whinged to him about how badly we got beaten on the weekend in tennis, and he said he just doesn't need to hear it every single Tuesday we sit. But Sam and I get on extremely well. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Sam Groth. I mean, having played for the Davis Cup, just phenomenal. I'm a Saints supporter, St Kilda supporter, even though I played at Footscray Reserves. for a couple of years, and I played for Sunshine in the VFA at Skinner Reserve. So some of your listeners would be well aware of that. And I played senior footy at Sunshine. So I love footy, played for 20 years. But in the end, I was working as an accountant and I used to get hit on the eyes. And I'd come into work on a Monday morning with two big black eyes. And working as an accountant with two big black eyes is not a very attractive look, I can tell you. But I've always loved footy and sport. I still do very much.
Yeah. Talking about tennis, there, I actually do play tennis as well. So,
Great
it is a
sport.
really good. It's a great sport. Yeah, I didn't get to do as much as I would have hoped this year because of year 12, of course. But next year, I'm hoping to go back into
Yeah,
tennis again and playing a bit more because I did play a lot of competition tennis before when I was younger, especially when I was 15, 16. So yeah, it's a really great sport. And
great sport. Great sport.
sorry to say that you're a Saints supporter, Kim. I mean, you were probably an 8-year-old when they won 1966.
Yes,
You're a
I
little
was sitting
boy.
with, I was sitting, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. But I was at an 8th birthday party and I was listening to a radio with a guy who was still my best mate today. He was Collingwood, I was St Kilda, and
He's a
we're
good man
still,
if he's Collingwood.
no, he's not. But he's just one of those, the two kids growing up in Bairnsdale were still the best of best mates. Unbelievable since, we were 6 and then obviously listening to the footy. But yes, good mates. I have got good mates who are Collingwood supporters.
Jess Wilson as well. Jess Wilson is yeah. I think you cut
Yes,
out a little bit there, Kim, at the end there, just a little bit.
just saying I've got good mates who are Collingwood supporters. So I still talk to them.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Collingwood's best team in the AFL, so yeah.
Argue.
We'll now get into our fifth question. So, who would you say is your political role model, slash idol?
So for me, Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher are the two absolutely outstanding conservative role models for me. Sesesi Kama, who you probably haven't heard of, but he was the first prime minister or the first president of Botswana. And Botswana was one of the poorest countries in the world. And he married a white woman in England and brought her back to Botswana, and all hell broke loose. Absolute hell broke loose. And South Africa wouldn't talk to England. England were trying to sort it all out. It became a real mess, but he stood his ground. He believed in the free market because he'd learnt that because he was educated in England, and took Botswana from a very, very poor country to today is still one of the powerhouses in the country, in the continent of Africa. An amazing man. If you ever go to Botswana, you can see people just want to get on. They just want to get on and work, build their economy, provide jobs, provide a good quality education and health service. What he did was absolutely extraordinary. So he's one of my real heroes.
Yeah, I have heard a lot about Botswana as well in African sense. I think that and Rwanda are two of the most economically developed African nations. So yeah, all thanks to the first president there for that, I guess. All
Yeah,
thanks to
just
President Kama.
an amazing man. Just and as you say, you go to Botswana, and you feel incredibly safe, and people are friendly and just want to get on and create jobs and build an economy. It's still fantastic today.
Yeah,
Locally, obviously, Ted Bailey is still one of my great heroes, and Dennis Napthine worked closely with both of them. So, locally speaking, Ted and Dennis are two of my role models.
are you still in contact with both Ted and Dennis even to this day?
Yeah, so I had lunch with Dennis with a few ex-ministers a couple of weeks ago. So Dennis and I are on contact. Ted and I would ring each other from time to time. So I like Ted a lot. Ted is a very good man. He's one of the most modest, humble men I've ever met in my life. He just extraordinary. Taking us from opposition into government. It hasn't happened too often, but Ted did it against all the odds, and Labor threw everything at him, and he stood firm. He stood tall, very tall, and is a great man, incredible man.
Yeah. As we've said, as we've talked about a bit before as well, you know, he was the last time we ever had a Liberal government, and before that it was Kennett, and then before
Yeah.
that it was the 1980s. So that's the only time in Tobias and my lifetimes that we've ever had a Liberal government, only for one term basically, and the rest it's all been Labor. So Ted is yeah, the amount the amount of hard work he put into that election campaign was pretty incredible.
And he surrounded himself with very good people. Michael Capel was his chief of staff, and these people were very good people. So having a good leader and being surrounded by very good people, he did it really well.
Yeah. So we'll get now into our sixth question, Tobias.
Yes. What made you run in the 1992 state election for the Liberal Party?
So Toby, I was 31, I think, 31. And
Long time ago.
thanks for that, Francis. That's very kind of you. But I was 31. I'd finished playing footy, and I had young kids. I think they were about 2 and 1, and I just felt the time was right, that I needed to go into politics, and I ran for pre-selection in a seat of Wanturna, and there were 12, I think, 12 or 13 candidates, and there was favourites from the south of the electorate or favourites from the north of the electorate. And I guess I came up through the middle and won it. So I was incredibly, incredibly grateful. And from that moment of being pre-selected, just door knocked and door knocked and door knocked and door knocked and door knocked to get well known. So that's the reason I ran. For me, the time was right and it worked out well.
I'm guessing as well, you've probably door knocked the whole of your electorate by this point. Like you've gone at multiple houses multiple times.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because we lived in Forest Hill, and Labor owned a campaign. I didn't live in the electorate, which is fair enough. So I moved into the electorate. So we bought in Wanturna, in the seat of Wanturna. Then the next redistribution, I was redistributed out. So I didn't live in my electorate. So Labor ran another campaign against me. I didn't live in my area. So yeah, it was interesting. So we've moved south, and then we're moving back north with the seat. So yeah, but for me, it's worked out incredibly well. And if you've got good branch members, good supporters, people that believe in you, it's really good fun. It's really good fun, hard work. I'm doing 19 school presentations over the next. So I've done probably half, another half to go. So yeah, it's good fun, really good fun.
Yeah. Spending a lot of time with the community is always important as an MP. So even without
Absolutely.
portfolios, it's always just important to spend time. And that's something we've learned a lot from interviewing a lot of politicians in the last couple of weeks. The amount of times a lot of the politicians talk about how they ran for politics just because they had an issue within their community that they wanted fixed, and they thought that they weren't getting adequate representation from previous members, and that kind of drove them to run. And
Yeah.
also, talking a bit about how Labor Party campaigned against you because you didn't live in the electorate. That's a little bit cliche, a little bit hypocritical.
It is
It's so
so
hypocritical.
hypocritical how they live in Brighton and Blackrock and in all the other seats, but they don't live in their own seats. So I do find it ironic that I was like 1.6 kilometres outside. And some of these guys are nowhere near their electorate.
Yeah, I can talk about like the current treasurer, Tim Pallas. He lives in Williamstown, and
Yeah,
he
I know.
represents Werribee.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
Where's the connection between Werribee and Williamstown? It's just pathetic. They are such hypocrites.
I feel like we're getting a little bit too political right now.
Okay, all right, no worries.
No, it's fine, Kim. It's fine. I was just joking a little bit there, but yeah, it is very hypocritical from the Labour Party, especially if they're running campaigns and that sort of thing. But yeah, we'll get now on to our last question. So, finally, what's one piece of advice you'd give to students in 2024, especially those who are entering university or high school?
Um, I I guess one of the things which seems a bit ironic is if you can make good friends. If you make good friends, because everything is great when you're on a high, but when you're on a low, good friends are those that stick by you, like good friends that stick by you. And the other thing is, and I know it's okay for me to say it now, but not to waste any opportunities. Don't waste any opportunities. If there's an extra class or there's an extra tutorial to be able to just attend, to be able to improve yourself, because at the end of the year, you're going to go, thank goodness, just jeepers creepers, thank goodness I did it, because now I know I'm going to get a good result. And, university is a slog. It is a real slog. And, I know it's important to catch up with friends, have your coffee and everything else, but you got to balance it out. Enjoy your mates, study hard, make sure you get a good result, because at the end of the year, if you haven't put the effort in, you're not going to get a good mark. So hopefully, that's good advice. But at high school, I mean, I attended everything, I did well at school, but I also loved my sport. And just every single sport, I was into it. I loved it.
So yeah, it's always important to find that balance between sporting and schooling, even other things as well. If you're interested in not just sport in general, like I guess for the younger generation, gaming and that sort of thing. Um,
Is
Finding
that
a balance between
Yeah, that's what that. Yeah,
is that the thing I see on TV sometimes?
yeah. The little
yeah.
controller. The
Tobias can tell
controller.
you a bit about that, Kim.
Yeah, yeah,
Gaming.
yeah. It's the controller
I thought
or
Joe McCracken would have told you a bit about gaming.
oh, he
Oh,
does it all the
don't tell
time.
me Joe's into it. Is Joe into gaming?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, jeez. So disappointing. But that's when you look at a screen and you play against someone else, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And they could be somewhere around the world.
Yeah, there could be like a 5-year-old from like India or something.
Yeah.
How embarrassing if he got thrashed. I'm going to check with Joe now to see who's been playing against and if how often he wins or loses.
He's probably gonna lie. He's probably gonna deny it.
Yeah, he's
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I for me, I I watch the news. I love the news. I like watching a documentary, but then I like being outside. So, Toby, when you go to check the list of people playing or gaming, you won't see my name on that list.
Maybe Tobias will make you start gaming, Kim. He will teach you some of his tricks. Even Joe McCracken could teach you some things.
Oh, couldn't think of anything worse. If I had to write down 10 things of the worst things I couldn't do, gaming would have to be up near the top. But that's the game. That's the age difference I'm showing here right now.
Yeah. Those are actually all our questions for you, Kim. We've gotten through the interview pretty quickly, but it's been good. It's been pretty entertaining. So we'd like to thank you again for joining us, and saving some time to talk about these important questions with us.